Hello and welcome to another edition of Fide's podcast. My name is Jerry Serino and I'm your host, and I'm here with talent on loan from Rush. Hey, don't let anyone ever tell you that politics and popular culture don't go hand in hand or don't influence each other. They absolutely do. And there's no better way to deal with the two combined than with great humor. And my guest today is Alex Clark, and she has made a name for herself making a lot of fun and having a lot of fun talking about popular culture as a conservative. So she's here to talk to us. Alex, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Jerry. I call people that follow my show cute conservatives.
Cute conservatives. Well, there's something to that because, especially when you look at like abortion rallies, you see these pro-lifers, they're always attractive and solid people. And you see, with all respect, the people on the other side of the left in general, man, they are the ugliest, most disgusting people I've ever seen. And is that true, or am I just imagining it?
No, it's definitely true. But think about what a leftist worldview is and ideology, that the world is ending due to climate change.
Mm.
Everybody's out to get you as a woman. That is going to put you as a young female in a very terrible headspace. If you're white, for example, telling you to hate yourself for your race that you can't control, all of those things I would imagine would put you in a very anxious headspace, very depressed. And if I felt like I had no reason to live or the whole world was against me, I probably would stop caring about how I look too. That's my theory. Now, I don't know that for a fact, but if I was guessing, I do think that's a reason why conservative women are happier. We have more joy. We have more of a purpose in life, something to live for.
Oh, 100%. I agree with everything you just said. I think that there's an aspect of faith in there too. I think people who have faith, who have, a religion and have values, they ultimately live a happier life. They have better relationships. The people I see in the left, they're angry, they're bitter, they're resentful, and they're probably depressed in a lot of ways, or even though they may not admit it. But okay, so I want to start with all this great stuff that you're doing. So you deal with pop culture as it relates to, and I'll let you explain it because you could do it better than me. But you're the host of the show called POPlitics, and also the Spillover podcast, which is with Turning Point USA. So explain real quick to my listeners what those are all about and what they can expect when they listen.
Yeah, so POPlitics on YouTube is a show that is Monday through Thursday every week. And it's around 10 minutes or so every day where
Mhm.
I just cover pop culture or entertainment news, celebrity gossip news of the day. The thing is that sets me apart is that it's all coming from a conservative perspective, unlike outlets like TMZ or E News. They are all reporting from a leftist worldview. If you look at
Mhm.
different politically charged pop culture moments like Miley Cyrus, for example, in 2019, she was photographed licking a cake that said abortion is healthcare. Moments like that, when you see left wing pop culture outlets report on them, it's always positive. This is so great. Yay, Miley. But nobody was willing to give another opinion on that. And so I thought, well, what if there was a pop culture show where you cover news like that? And I like Miley Cyrus's music. I mean, I'm young, I'm in the same demographic. Her and I are about the same age. I just disagree with her politically. So I just thought, if there was a show that was from a conservative perspective, but it wasn't like an older guy hating on pop culture moments, maybe young people that found themselves a little bit homeless politically, maybe they would see my show and then be like, oh, well, that's kind of an interesting perspective. I never would have thought of it that way. And so that's exactly what has happened with POPlitics. And that's on YouTube. You can subscribe. A year and a half ago, I launched the Spillover, which is anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. And it's a 1 hour interview once a week where I interview somebody that has a jaw dropping life story or really interesting expertise on a different subject. And that is for all ages, all demographics, men, women, everybody loves the Spillover. I've had people that, our professional exorcists on, women that have escaped
Mhm.
serial killers. I've had celebrities, actresses, everything. It's just fascinating stories. But you can trust me as the host that I'm conservative. So it's all going to be coming from that perspective as well. But those are the ways that I'm trying to kind of put the conservative movement on the front lines of culture, is that I just like to create entertainment. So
Mhm.
neither of my shows are really super political at like things that people would expect in the conservative movement. It's kind of a lot of content that people on either side of the political spectrum would enjoy, but then once in a while there will be that nugget that's pro-life or that explains why BLM Inc. is detrimental to the Black community. It'll be little things like that, but I've built up such a good rapport with the audience because they do like my content. They like me as a person. And so when I bring up something like that that's more conservative, they're more likely to listen. And therefore, a lot of times I've seen change their mind.
Yeah, it's really good, and I say that as a listener. I've listened to a bunch of your stuff, and I've also seen a bunch of you have posts that you put out there that are along the same lines. You know, you're making a statement with a post. You know, you don't need audio to do it all the time, and they're really good because I think you know you come across you're young, you're cool. I mean, if you're watching and right now it's blocked by your name there, but you're wearing a Metallica t-shirt, right? I mean, we can be conservative, pro-life, Christian people and be cool, right? If for lack of a better word. And I think and funny. You're really hilarious, by the way. You had I was cracking up the other day. I was listening to you talking about the whole M&M's thing. And I'll have you do that. And you mentioned how maybe the M&M is going to be identify as a Skittle or something, and I was cracking up. So, all right. So I am curious. I want to get into a couple of these issues. We will talk about the M and M's. We will talk about Beyonce. You recently spoke about Beyonce and a couple other things, but I want to ask about your background. So it's very interesting. As I said, you're this young, cool person. You know, humorous. Again, involved in pop culture, but you're a conservative. What's your background? Did you grow up that way? How did you get into saying, "Hey, I'm gonna do POPlitics"?
Okay, so I'll do the short version of this story. I grew up in a Christian conservative home. Politics was always discussed in my family. I always enjoyed learning about it. I always knew I
Mhm,
was conservative. I was outspoken with my conservative beliefs my entire life, even in high school. And I just never thought I would do anything with my career in regards to politics. I ended up going into pop radio. When I was 18 years old, I ended up taking a full time job in pop radio. I ended up dropping out of college and pursuing that. I was on number one rated morning shows in a couple different cities. And as my career grew, I was in that space in the morning show circuit in CHR or top 40 radio for 7 years. And the longer I was in that role, the more I could tell, especially with Trump becoming president, how it was really problematic for mainstream media to have an openly conservative young host in that space
mhm.
because the demographic that we were targeting was 18 to 24-year-old people, essentially high school and college age kids. And I'm telling them, like, yeah, I voted for Trump. Yeah, I'm conservative. And I was very open about that and honest and transparent about my life. And that started to become a problem once Trump became president. Before that, I was like, oh, it's a little controversial. She's openly conservative. But as you and I both know, the culture just totally changed after 2016. And so that's when I started to realize, okay, I have to get out of this environment if I want to be able to talk to young people about why I believe what I believe. But I loved pop culture. I liked doing that content and sharing about my personal life. And so I ended up going to a Turning Point USA conference for young women in 2018. By 2019, I knew I wanted to leave radio and still do a pop culture show, but I didn't know where or how because something like POPlitics didn't exist. And
Mhm.
so that's when I ended up talking to Turning Point USA and I said, look, I have this idea for a show that lives on the internet, and I talk to kids or young people, college age kids, about conservative beliefs, but I'm talking about pop culture. And they were like, wow, that's never been done before. We'll hear you out. So Charlie Kirk flew me out to Phoenix, Arizona, which is where the Turning Point headquarters is. And I pitched the show and he said, let's try it. At the time, Turning Point did not have any daily shows like that. We didn't have a productions department like we have now. So in 2019, I was the first one for Turning Point. The show was a huge hit with young conservative women all across the country. And it just became a movement. It became way more than a YouTube show. It became like a sorority for young conservative women where they're meeting up all over the country. They're making friends based on the common love for my show. And that's how the cute conservative movement was born. And
Conservative.
so yeah.
I love it. No, it's such a great story because you were able to be who you are, and as far as like sort of on the inside, and also do what you had a passion for, which obviously was speaking and broadcasting. And it's great that that's the one thing about I hate social media, but I also love it because we can, if we use it properly, we can use it to our advantage. And shows like mine, shows like yours is way more popular than mine, but they can be out there because no one controls us on what we can do. You can put it out there, unless they ban you from YouTube like they did me and others. But okay, so let's talk about a couple of these issues that you've discussed on your episodes. We mentioned the M&Ms, and so I'll start with that first. Tell us what went on with the M&Ms and your take on it.
All right, so the M&Ms decided for their new marketing campaign in 2022 that they were going to come out literally with a lesbian spokesperson couple, their little M&M characters, and then also one that was non-binary and plus size. So it was this larger purple M&M that they said was non-binary. Well, everybody, it was just kind of weird. I remember when the announcement first came out, everybody kind of was like, okay, like, are we supposed to care about this? This is such a bizarre thing to do. And I think people were very like indifferent, or they just thought this is dumb. Nobody like loved it. Even here's the thing. When companies do this kind of weird stuff to play into the LGBTQ community, people that I know in my personal life that are gay, for example, nobody cares about this. Even people that are in that community, everybody thinks it's dumb. They know it's pandering. And so that's the thing. These people are gay. They're not stupid. They know when they're just being marketed to. And they walked it back. They just announced that they were canceling all, not just those characters, but all of the spokes candies. They said we didn't realize it was going to be this controversial. And it's like, dude, how can you look at all of the different things that have taken place in pop culture over the last year? Top Gun being a huge success. All of these very non-woke things in pop culture that people ended up loving. How can you look at that and think that people want that type of content? We don't. We don't want that. We just want to eat our candy. We don't care who it's sleeping with, even in a pretend way. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And so it was interesting to see them admit, hey, this was a mistake, and now we're just getting rid of all of our spokes candies. Tragic. RIP to all of them, but tragic.
Spokes candies. The left never ceases to amaze me in their stupidity, and then they marvel at when people react to it the way they did in this way. It's crazy. Okay, so the other topic or person you talked about is Beyonce. She's extremely popular, extremely wealthy, especially when you combine her and her husband Jay-Z's money together. They're billionaires, quite frankly. So what was the controversy or issue with her recently?
Well, Beyonce decided to accept a private concert. I believe she was going to be paid around $25 million to go do this private performance in Dubai. And her fans, who she has a very progressive, obviously she's a leftist, and so is Jay-Z, and she speaks out a lot about social issues and all these different things from a liberal perspective. Her audience was very upset with her for accepting this concert and this performance because it is illegal to be gay there in Dubai. So her audience said that because she is so wealthy, why would she have accepted this money in the first place. She should have made a stand and said, I'm not going to do this performance because, she supports gay rights. Well, what's interesting, of course, and I pointed this out on POPlitics this week, is that the same people that are saying, well, Beyonce should have never accepted this money, they all have Ukraine flags in their bio. Obviously, it's not acceptable to be a member of the LGBTQ community there either. They all were very pro-Palestine. Israel is the only place in the Middle East that accepts anyone in the LGBT community. So the hypocrisy
Hmm.
was very apparent in them saying that Beyonce should have done this, but they've all been doing this, And so I brought up that hypocrisy with Beyonce on the show. It's just, these are the types of stories that I cover. And that's really fun because my audience that would say, oh, well, I'm not really political, or I don't know where I stand, they hear something like that and they can't deny it. They can't
Hmm.
deny the facts of the situation. And so I'm thankful for the ability to be able to kind of point that out.
Yeah, that was a good story. That because you always get the left always sort of getting tying themselves up in a knot over some of these issues, because I'm sure she flew there in a private jet, right? Of course, and it's just the way it is. Okay, so the last year, second last question I have, or topic I want to ask you about, is one as I was preparing to talk to you and looking at your social media and things like that, I was struck by a topic that you were taking on, and I didn't let you know I was going to ask you about this at a time. So if you're watching and you see Alex kind of going, "Uh oh, what's going?" No, it's all good. But I noticed that you have taken a stand, or discussed the issue of birth control,
Oh,
and that
yes.
can be very, very controversial in so many ways. And I was hoping that you would explain your thoughts on it. Um, I found it very, very interesting.
Thank you actually for asking me this. Yeah, so I'm super, super passionate about talking to young women about at all costs, if at all possible, avoiding hormonal birth control. So I am a young millennial. I'm 29. When I was in high school, it was very normal and common to go to the doctor and for no reason at all, except you're having breakouts or you have painful periods, we're going to put you on hormonal birth control. It was never discussed with me or any other young woman I know, all of the different side effects and potential problems that you could encounter with birth control.
Mhm.
Everything from accelerated aging, looking older, to severe migraines, depression, anxiety, fertility issues, all these different things that it can cause, because when you're on hormonal birth control, it's depleting your body of nutrients as women that we need. And so when you're on that, it can just create all these other issues. So it's never really said to us. It's never really
Mhm.
told to us. It's this huge billion-dollar business within big pharma to get all of these women on birth control. And then almost all of my friends have now experienced fertility issues, because now my friend group, my age group, is starting to get into the time where we're getting married and we're starting to try to have a family. And all of us are then having to do IVF or different fertility measures. And that's another 25 grand or so that each woman is spending to try to have a
Mhm.
baby. And so I believe my conspiracy that it's all connected, but what's not a conspiracy is the millions of women who have now come forward and said, why did nobody explain to me as a teenager or as a young adult how getting on birth control would affect me in all of these other ways? And instead of saying to these young women, oh, you're experiencing suicidal thoughts, you're experiencing depression, maybe it's the birth control, they say, ooh, you know what, we should go ahead and put you on Lexapro, we should put you on Prozac. They start upping all of the different medications that they're on. It's just a medication for every single symptom and then another medication for all of those symptoms of that medication. It's a
Mhm.
whole rabbit hole. And so it's interesting because it's not really a subject that I don't feel like a lot of people in the conservative movement have ever talked about or touched or really cared about. And so I've really tried to start talking about that. And now this kind of more holistic health approach has become a very hot button topic for my audience. They love this content. And on the spillover on my podcast, I've done 4 episodes this month, all on different health or food or wellness topics. And they have just loved it, eaten it up, pun intended,
Mhm.
because if we as conservatives know that the government meddling in all these other aspects of our life is so problematic, whether that's education or healthcare, whatever, like, why aren't we thinking about that with the drugs that we take in big pharma? And I think that the pandemic really brought a lot of that to people's attention. But yes, birth control plays a huge part in that, of just lies that I believe young women have been sold. And so another controversial topic that I talk about a lot.
Yeah, what's funny about it is that it shouldn't be controversial, like so many of these issues, because like you had said, why would anyone hide information from people about something they're putting in their bodies? As you mentioned, we were dealing with this with COVID here, and we've been lied to. We're not allowed to even ask questions about things in regards to the vaccine. And look, if someone still wants to know the facts and still take birth control, whatever, fine. But don't deny the facts. Don't deny the information to them. It's really interesting. So, did you? And I thought I saw some discussion on the issue of birth control that was not related to health, meaning is birth control for, say, a married couple the ideal?
Well, oh, there's so much I could say about this. So there's other methods. You don't have to be on birth control if you're trying to prevent having a child, whether you're married or not. There's other things like the natural family planning method, tracking our menstrual cycles. These are different things that women, we're not told this stuff as teenagers, taught to understand. There's only a couple days, a handful of days every month that a woman can even get pregnant. We're not taught that. We're not taught that at all. So why are we being put on birth control when, if we just know what these couple days are that we're the most likely to get pregnant, we can just avoid those? Now, there's a whole another conversation to be had, obviously, about sex before marriage and all those other things. But if we're just talking about the idea of, I just am not ready to have a child yet, there are other non-invasive ways that you don't have to be on pharmaceutical meds to keep that from happening,
Mhm.
married or not. So that's a whole thing. And what's really, really shocking is that the way that birth control alters our hormones as women, it can make us feel as if we're attracted to a certain man when we're on it. And then when we get off hormonal birth control, we realize we're not attracted to him. So you have all of these women that are on birth control, they get married, and then they decide, oh, I want to get off birth control because now I'm ready to have a baby. And then they go through this crisis of, I'm not feeling attracted to my husband at all. Because when they met, she was on birth control and then she gets off of it. Now, this is all psychology today and all these different outlets. I mean, this has been covered. It's not a hypothetical theory. This is scientifically proven how it alters our hormones. These are the facts that we should be teaching in high school health classes that we're not. And so if we're taking back all these other aspects of our lives from the government, don't rely on the education system to teach your young girls this. Parents should be talking to their the young women in their lives about this as well.
Very interesting. I had never heard that take. I'm wondering if all the girls in high school got off of birth control, and that's why they were rejecting me so often. I don't know. I mean, there has to be some explanation that would help help me feel better about myself back then.
Well,
Okay, no.
there's a whole episode I did with a doctor. It's Dr. Leah Gordon in July of 2022 on the spillover, where the whole episode is about birth control, hormones, and also infertility. So if somebody listening is interested, they can go back and listen to that on the spillover.
Yeah, definitely. And what's great about, podcasts, if you're listening to my show on a podcast app like Apple or Spotify, you can scroll through and see the different topics. And that's what I did with Alex on her show as well. And you could see, so if you're looking for that one or something else catches your eye, that's such a great way. That's what's great about podcasts. So yeah, very interested. I'm going to go look for that one as well. Okay. So my last topic before we sign off is I'm curious to know, who are the people that you look up to from the political perspective? Are there people that or people currently or in the past that maybe influenced you to be the conservative you are?
Wow, that's a really great question. I mean, obviously, there's people like Rush Limbaugh that I grew up listening to in my house. Dennis Prager was always on in my house. My mom would always listen to Laura Ingram's radio show. I
Mhm.
remember listening to those people. I believe they totally influenced me. And then, other women that do similar things to me. I'm really good friends with Allie Beth Stuckey. She hosts the podcast Relatable
Yep.
in the conservative movement. She's phenomenal. So somebody
Mhm.
like Allie has been an awesome mentor and friend to me, and I really appreciate her. Yeah, I mean, and then obviously you can't deny somebody like Donald Trump because he came in and was so different than the typical status quo. And I feel like when I came into working in the conservative movement, my show and what I was doing was so different. And a lot of conservatives kind of gave pushback and were like, who is this girl? The show is so non-serious. Why do we need to be talking about pop culture? Well, 3 years later, and the fan base of all these young conservative women that are now showing up and running for school board and coming to conservative events and becoming stay-at-home moms and raising their babies, or talking about their conservative beliefs in the workplace. A lot of them felt encouraged by my show. So I believe it has made a cultural impact, even though at first people thought this person is unserious, just like what they had said about Trump in 2015 or whatever, when he came down the escalator.
Mhm.
So not saying I'm like Trump, I'm just saying
Yeah.
somebody that is going to say, hey, I see something in a political movement that doesn't exist. And because I wish that I had it, I'm going to create it. And that's kind of how I felt with POPlitics. I wanted a conservative pop culture show. It was something that I would have enjoyed watching or listening to, and it didn't exist. So I thought, I want to do it. And so I did. So I hope people will subscribe to POPlitics on YouTube and the Spillover anywhere you get your podcasts, because we'd love to have you in the cute conservative fam.
Yes, yes. If you want to be a cute conservative, definitely engage and connect with Alex. I have the names of the shows if you're watching that are on the screen. If you're listening, it's Poplitics, and that's on YouTube, and the Spillover is on any podcast app. Just go to the search button and search for it. So really enjoyable talking to you, Alex. You're lots of fun. You talk fast, but you say great things. Keep up the great work, and thanks so much for coming on my show.
Thank you, Jerry. Your show's great. And you're not the only one to say I talk too fast. My entire life, my parents say the same thing to me still when I go home to visit today. It's, Alex, you need to slow down on your shows. So I get it.
Well, I don't know, if I hope I didn't say too fast, that you talk fast, which is a good thing. I think that's actually that's a very good attribute, actually, because I think it keeps people's attention. So keep it up. Again, whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. Really appreciate it. Great stuff. Alex Clark, host of Poplitics and the Spillover. Please check her out, and go check her out on social media to connect with her on all the different social medias. You'll enjoy it. Alex, thanks so much.
Thank you, Jerry.
And thank all of you for listening to this episode of Fide's podcast. Please check out all my different podcasts and all the different podcast apps on YouTube, on Rumble, and on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern on rightamericamedia.com. So thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.